first.
Welcome, everyone, to the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Witcher, and today we're here with Chris. And I'm super excited because, quite honestly, I've been following Chris for a little while on Instagram. He makes me happy. The way that he just talks about special education and just the joy that you bring, Chris. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing just out on social media, bringing some happiness to our special education community.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to be on here on your podcast and to connect with you because you are just so awesome. And I think that our worlds have, really meshed right together. So this will be awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun. So we're both like really high energy. And so for everybody who is like visually watching us, you can see we're like on the edge of our seats. Like we're like ready. We want to pour into you. I have a feeling this isn't going to be our only conversation with Chris here at the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. So we have a hot topic though that is very relevant. And before we jump into that, I want to find out, Chris, how did you end up at an IEP table?
Excellent question. And this actually reflects back onto my childhood. So when I was in high school, my parents are both in education. And so in high school, my dad was a PE teacher and also a baseball coach. So I would go down there as the assistant coach. As I transitioned into my college years, I started substituting his class. Now he was general education. And in his class, he had a few students that were mainstreamed, and one of them in particular had an assistant with him, a one-to-one aide. Every day for PE, he would dress up as Spider-Man. I kid you not, you can't make this stuff up. And so this was a student that my dad said, "Hey, if he wants to be Spider-Man for PE, he's going to be Spider-Man for PE." There was some flexibility that my dad had always instilled on me. And he told me that my ability to work with some of those students was exactly aligned with how he wanted to raise me. The number one thing that I had ever learned in my life was from my dad, and it was this: help others who need the most help. Help others who need the most help. That's how you're going to live your life. And so from there, it rippled into me saying, this is what I want to do. I had initially wanted to be an English teacher, and I said, nope, I'm going to go get my special ed credential. So I got my credential here in California, worked with mild, moderate disabilities for 3 years. And that was the start of it all. I just really, that got me involved with IEPs. That got me involved with learning the ropes on how to write IEPs and how to write goals and all of that stuff. That's
not where you're at now, though. You're not a classroom teacher anymore. So tell us what's your role right now in special education? So the starting point was special ed teacher. And then from there was, which is a very rare thing, there was a male SLP. Like at this time, this is in 2002. Tell our parents SLP. we like to so for everybody who's listening who didn't catch the acronym, what is it?
It stands for awesome people. No, speech language pathologist.
Got it.
You know what? If I say that 3 times fast, then I need a speech therapist to help me out. So, so there was this male SLP. He might have been like the only guy in the United States that was an SLP, a speech language pathologist. And I said, you know what, Steve, is there a way I could shadow you for one day? Because I'm here teaching 22 students and you're calling me and saying, hey, Mr. Wenger, can I get 2 or 3 students for speech? And I'd always say, Steve, would you like 22? And so I really liked what he did because it was more one-to-one. It was more working specific with these goals. It was more helping these kids. How do we get these kids involved with having friendships, connected with after-school programs, connected with their peers during class, being able to work well in the classroom? I mean, that was my ticket. So this was just all a stage for me to get to where I'm at now, which is the speech dude. My goal is really to work with, specific to my niches, high school students on the spectrum. That's really what my area of specialty is. But yeah, really, I just love it. It's fun really having a perspective of the being a male in the field.
I'm sure. So, of course, you're our first male guest that's on the podcast because this is not something. This is not something that happens often, where we have a male in special education who is a leader, who is really breaking boundaries. And you're talking about things that people don't talk about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're in a really critical time in our education system where things have fallen apart. And in my opinion, we have the opportunity to put them back together better than ever. So our special education laws enacted in like 1975, that's really not that long ago. It's 45 years ago. We have the opportunity now that we've seen everything break to put it back together and to shift some mindsets that are a couple of decades old. And that's where it's really going to take teamwork, collaborative thinking, and we're going to have to rely on our resources like SLPs to really enhance the education, because what we're finding with these school shutdowns, lockdowns, or hybrid models, or even going back to school with new social distancing rules, that there's a lot of complications happening that we just can't go back and hit the books.
Right. Absolutely.
So what are you going to be prioritizing or encouraging as we transition back in, and you're looking at everybody that you're working with now, and you're getting back in the schools, and eventually all of us are going to get back in the schools. We're determined, but we're going to get there. Yeah. What are you anticipating of needing to be a focus? What are some of your priorities going to be? And especially at that high school age, because I see a panic happening, especially in the parent community, that their children who are in high school, who are going to be aging out in the next, 3 to 6 years of the system, they're scared. So what are some priorities that we can focus on?
Right. I want to touch on that last topic real quick, because that's a huge one right there. You were right. There's a lot of parents and with their kids that are going to be aging out, or they're going to be transitioning out here in the next year, or maybe the next 5 years. And I always think about that reverse engineering process of, I'm a huge advocate of that, of saying, okay, where do you see your son or daughter in 10 years from now? Tell me that. And from there, whatever that response is how we start our goals, or we start our process. And so that's a big thing for me right now too, is, okay, we're looking forward in 5 years. Would you like to see your son or daughter? Is it in a workplace with some job coaching? Is it in a transitional program? Is it, whatever the programs are offered? And right now, that's what I target. How do we target that? Well, I don't know if I'm biased or not on this, but as a speech pathologist, the social and emotional part trumps everything else. It really does. And so I can share with you this. My concept, or my thought, is this. If there was a Harry Potter wand and the kids were all given this, and you were to tell the kids, okay, I want you to do a certain spell, and that spell, if you had this Harry Potter magic wand, we're able to get rid of the social difficulties you have, or the academic difficulties you have, what would you like this magic wand to do? And I can guarantee you 100% the kids that I work with and the kids that are on IEPs would always say, I would like to get rid of my social difficulties and my emotional difficulties that I have. Really, that's how our kids become successful. And so from my world, in my school of my field and my line of work, is really working on the social and emotional components of everything. That really is it. I stress this so much to parents.
And you get some pushback on that. You and I chatted a little bit about that. Sometimes you get some pushback of like, well, we're supposed to be in school for, our reading and our math. And if we can fit it in, maybe we'll get to our speech minutes, or, however it's written into the IEP in that way. And you have a pretty powerful, thought process on that's not how it should be.
Right. Absolutely. I could share with you a story with some roundabout ways of doing it for FERPA and HIPAA stuff on stories. But I have experienced this, where it has been told to me, Mr. Wenger, my child's in AP honors classes with AP Chem and AP Government and this and that. So we're going to put speech on hold. And I said, I do want to stress the importance that even if it's for a short time, 30 minutes a week or whatnot, that this is going to be more important than the actual grade that the student's going to get. Because when they transition out and they move to college and then they go get this job, if they don't have the essential skills to relate with others, then we were up against a different battle. This student graduated and went to a really nice fancy college and lasted 1 year and had to drop out of the system for college because several things had occurred that related to the social part. Reflecting back on that, it was one of those things of the importance of these human connections, the importance of really regulating our thoughts, regulating our emotions, staying calm when we need to, not getting crazy in class when we get a B instead of an A, not flipping over desk in front of a professor and 250 other students, not being on a Zoom call when the teacher says something, we're trying to correct the teacher in the chat room by telling them, hey, tomorrow spell with 1 M and not 2. All of these things.
Some parent just shook their head and go, oh, that's my kid.
Holy moly.
But here's what I know that I have some parents specifically, and even some special education teachers who you're naming off a lot of skills that go way beyond teaching articulation to a child. And there's so many times that I hear, a child doesn't need speech because they have good articulation. And for those of you that aren't they say their words well. You can understand what they're saying. And now you're talking about SLP in a whole different role of, making this whole social piece work. Can you delve into that a little bit? Because some people just went, wait, a speech therapist can do that. So share a little bit about what that role looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So especially as the kids transition and as they get older and into the older grades, 7th, 8th, 9th, we'll talk about that. Kindergarten to 6th grade. I'm getting a little echo here. Sorry about that. Kindergarten to 6th grade. The kids, are you getting an echo by chance?
No, we're fine.
Okay. Let me turn my volume down so I'm not getting an echo. It's kindergarten to 6th grade, the students are kind of a herd of kids. They go at recess together. They have their little activities outdoors together. They have their reading time together for the most part, right? Then when they get to 7th grade, they have a dance, a Halloween dance. And then they have these little subgroups because the flag football in kindergarten to the 6th grade format changes to this Pop Warner where they're starting to find their groups. Right? And then the cheerleaders are starting to surface at that age and you get these groups. So right in 7th grade, you notice a big transition between the way the kids are expected to relate with their peers. It's kindergarten to 6th grade, we're working on their R's and S's. The kids with fluency disorders, we work on a different thing as they get older on growth mindset and being able to stay away from fear. But once we get to 7th grade and beyond, now we're looking at a whole different element of how to target the students, which is the social part, right? How do we make sure that these kids aren't getting bullied every single day? How do we make sure that these kids aren't, trying to constantly disrupt the teacher? How do we make sure that they are as best possible blending into the woodwork, right? Because if they don't, then they become an outcast or they become, pushed away from their peers, which leads to them staying home. And then what ends up happening is they stay in their bedroom and become a bear in a cave. And when they become a bear in a cave, that's okay until they graduate high school. Because when a bear in a cave happens when they graduate is a bear in a cave turns into depression. And that's what we really got to stay away from. So my role really is to work with these kids on, to answer your question is the social ability. How do we relate with others? How do we predict what might happen? How do we take the perspective of somebody else so we're not looking like the odd person with our peers in class? It's really the most important thing. It really is.
And here's the thing, each of us have a unique personality. I've got mine, you've got yours. We all figure out a way that we can be ourselves and also be who we need to be in certain situations. That's just part of life. We can act one way at work when we're in a classroom, another way when we're on a podcast having a conversation, another way when we're hanging out with our family at a family gathering, and then another way at home. And that's really what you're talking about, is how do you adapt to all these different situations and make sure that they can access, that's always my favorite word, of how are they going to access their education or access a job or access further education or access even that job coach or whatever that's going to look like. And that requires us to have a really intentional purpose with our speech team at the school, with our social work team, with our teaching team. So I know that you have been involved in a lot of high level cases. You've got a lot of experience in a lot of different ways. And we're going to be back talking together about some of those really sticky situations. But what's one of the things that you're encouraging the families that you're working with right now to really work on with their team to make sure they stay out of the ugliness? And for, sake of not being vague here, like there's a lot of parents that are like, we're going to throw the school under the bus. We're going to fight for every minute that has been lost in speech over the last 6 months with schools being done. We're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for that. We're going to make it happen. And there are things, there's a working relationship. There's different things that we could be doing right now and prioritizing and making that transition so we can move forward faster. Are there any specific data collection tools or activities that you're doing or home to school communication? Like, what are some of those things?
Gosh, I'm going to be here for the next 48 hours answering that. Let's do it in a nutshell, though. So, regarding activities and what I do, I am huge, as you know, with my social media stuff, with visuals and videos. I use tons of clips from TV shows and movies and really hit home with making it fun for the students, because that's how we motivate them. Have fun activities, not just handouts and PDFs from Teachers Pay Teachers, right? We want to make it fun and engaging. So, I'll pull up brand new songs that are on the radio. Some like Hole in the Bottle, the country song is like so perfect to talk about why it's really not a hole in the bottle. And just fun stuff for the kids. There's a website called everydayspeech.com that has several hundred social skills videos that go from a range of your beginning communicators all the way up to your very high working individuals who are working on inferencing and abstract language and all those kinds of things. So I love that website. I just love videos. So now transitioning out a little bit for a parent strategy on how they can really help the students. I think this is a big one when we talk about social and emotional needs, is to talk about and deal with what the kids are going through and talk about their needs. Oftentimes what happens is that we will end up not addressing their emotions. We'll just push it off. So let me give you an example. What we say, okay, Johnny, I know that it's tough not being around your friends, but this will all be over soon and you'll be back to school next semester. We're not really talking about their needs. We're kind of avoiding it. It's like if our friend just broke up with somebody and we're like, you know what, just get over it. Jump back on Tinder or Bumble in a week and you'll find someone new. We're not addressing their needs, their emotions. So what we do is we say, hey, I know that this happened. I know it's probably hard, that you didn't deserve that. Like, you literally talk about someone's emotions to get them through it. And then that's really how you deal with the growth mindset and really how you keep somebody moving along, right? So I think for parents, talking about their kids' emotions and addressing the emotions, not pushing off by saying, hey, I know it was a tough day, but you know what? In March, we're going to be back, or whatever the case might be. Talk about that part of it. The other thing that I would really stress on is the communication with the IEP team. And I know you're huge on this. I cannot tell you that level of trust and the connection that you have with everybody on the team speaks so many numbers. And so let me share with you a story and my perspective and my concept. In 2011, we had 9/11 happen. Prior to 9/11, when I would go to Los Angeles Airport, LAX, it took me 20 minutes. It took everybody 20 minutes to get through the airports. And most of your listeners right now or viewers watching this are going to go, yeah, I remember a time where it only took 20 minutes to get on an airplane.
Right. Like you could load up your bottles of water into your backpack and just go flying through, run into the gate. You could pick up your friend right at the gate. Like you had easy access.
Life was good.
Yes.
I was like, hey, I got plenty of time to hang out inside of the airport and enjoy a drink inside the airport. So here's the deal, though. So we trusted the system. We trusted the security. We trusted the airlines. But when 9/11 hit, what happened? From that moment until present day and for the rest of our lives, we now are apprehensive at times because we're not 100% trustworthy of the system. We get to security. We don't trust other people sometimes. And so now it takes an hour and a half, sometimes 2, to get through these lines, right? The same with an IEP.
I love that.
You break trust at any point with anybody on the team for anything, even if it's little, it's really hard to go back. It's really hard to get everybody on board. And I can't stress this enough for every single member, parents, SLPs, occupational therapists, administrators, everybody, we're a team. And it's so important from day one to have that trust. And so,
and we make mistakes. Trust doesn't mean that you're perfect. Trust doesn't mean that you don't mess up. Trust just means that you're transparent and you own it. Things go wrong. Just own it. You know what? I made mistakes as a teacher. Own it. And I've become a better teacher, become a better SLP, become a better, parent for your child at the IEP table. Own it. If you asked for something and then you decided maybe I was asking for something that wasn't quite right. Like, own it, and then let's move on and keep building that trust in there. But I love that analogy because you just went from the whole, like, it could be a 30-minute IEP meeting or it could be 3 IEP meetings to get to the same result with that.
Absolutely. The ones that are the multiple ones where you have to reconvene and they ended up taking a long time. We are human. And there are errors. I've made many errors. I will share with you this. The errors that I've made have made me a stronger SLP. The advocates that have come in that have really kind of grinded things have made me a stronger SLP because I'm definitely crossing my T's, dotting my I's, making sure I know the law. I look at everything as a good thing. Everything that happens to you in your life, everything that happens to you in an IEP is a good thing. If you're in a meeting for 5 hours, good.
Some people just rolled their eyes. Okay, you guys, go back and listen to it again. Listen to that piece again, because that is good advice. It's if you're having a huge struggle, that's okay, because you're going to know how to get through it, right? You're going to have that experience.
If everything was easy, if IEPs were easy every time, you're not growing. You're not learning anything new. You're not making better goals. You're not making more progress. You're not really.
Oh, I'll share one with you here. So I'll have people tell me all the time, nah, I don't need to join you in the special education inner circle because my team always says yes. So the special education inner circle is a private membership group to continue the conversations that we have on the podcast, right? So we have the podcast and we're like, if you like this, so if you guys are like, yeah, I like this, but I want to dig deeper in the conversation, you join the special education inner circle. And they'll say, I don't want to do that because my team says yes. And I said, well, then you're not asking for enough. You're not growing in what you're asking for. Right. You need to keep asking until you get to a no. And that's not just for parents. That's for teachers too. If you're asking for things and your administration's like, yeah, sure. Don't get excited. Say, what else? What else can I ask for?
Look, we're best friends right now. Yeah. We just became best friends. I love it. When I struggle and I have those failures, I think to myself that failure is growth in wolves' clothing. Failure is growth in wolves' clothing. That's how it works. I don't mind if I fail. We've heard this time and time again. You fail and you get up and you become stronger. When you're not asking questions or you're not reaching out like the special ed inner circle, you're not growing. You got to be part of these things. You've got to constantly learn and ask questions and become part of these organizations and these groups that are out there. Really that's exactly how we make our lives purposeful and meaningful. If I sat around and everything was easy, now I'm not finding purpose in my life and I'm not doing what my dad told me was the number one thing in life, helping others who need help the most. And you know who needs the help the most are the ones who really have the most services and in a good way. But I'm learning, other therapies and how can I best help when I'm with this child. And I'm constantly learning. That's what the world of IEPs are about, and just education in general is a constant opportunity to grow. Let me tell you this. When the world shut down and education became online, we had two ways of thinking about it. Oh, crap. I don't know what I'm doing on Zoom calls. People are going to see how I'm teaching. I don't know how to do technology. Or we could say, here's an opportunity that's going to be a challenge, but at the end of it, I'm going to have a better technology skills. I'm going to probably be better organized. I'm going to have better communication with my parents through emails, through Canvas, through phone calls, whatever it might be. This was meant to be. This is going to make us so much stronger.
I love it. So I'm using this as the biggest platform, the biggest trigger point to say, all right, can we get rid of all of the IEP goals that are getting a child ready for the 1980s? Have we, can we just admit that some of these goals going forward are completely irrelevant? They didn't matter before all of this happened, but if you step back and look, they definitely don't matter. Purpose and meaningful, that's what we need.
That's what we need. So yeah, no more student will be able to find a payphone and put in the correct change. Student will be able to flip through a phone book to find out how to connect a taxi service.
Everybody's worried, oh my gosh, my child can't go do their life skills and practice in the grocery store. Okay, why? Because we're all shopping online. Okay, so now what should your child be learning to do? If this is how we're shopping, what do we need to do? This is what we got to do. So, all right. So, oh my goodness, we're going to have to definitely chat again, because we could go on and on and on. Here's what I love. And I do want to, I didn't know that you were going to say the whole, help the people who need the most help with that. And I'm thinking, gosh, what a game changer that would be if everybody who listened here decided to be that person at the IEP table. They were just that person that sat there and said, who needs the most help? Maybe it's the teacher that's listening right now that's going to go, you know what, at the next IEP table, when I see that parent struggling, I'm going to help the parent. Or the SLP who's struggling because their caseload's too big and whatever, that the teacher's going to lean over and help the speech therapist and make sure, because it feels like we're all on our own. And of all things, in your role of communication and speech and just community, that's what I hear as a common theme for you is community. You're building a community for the students. You're building them into the community. That's what we need. Absolutely.
100%. You nailed it right there. Always supporting others, always trying to help those who need the most. This is the deal right here. You want to live a life that when you die, the world cries. You make an impact. That's it, right?
Yep. You have to make an impact.
I tell myself when I wake up and jump in my pool at 5 a.m. every morning.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. No, not gonna. Well, you're in California, so I guess so. But no. But yeah, we have to get it. We have to make change. We can't accept the status quo. We have to decide to be intentional about our efforts. I'm going to make sure that in the show notes here that everybody has access to where they can follow you on social media, where they can reach out. I know that you have several resources for your colleagues that they can connect with you and learn from you. I'm sure that you're going to have a following of parents right now. They're going to say why can't you work in my school? I need Chris on my team. So you're going to have to figure out how to clone yourself and do that. So is there any other way that parents should reach out to you or reach, is it through the Instagram DMs? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
You know what? So in the next week or so, I've been building a lot of activities, free resources for the social skills at speechdude.com. Right now, There's just a little area that pops up quickly. That's a way to subscribe to my email list. My school of thought on that is that I'm going to keep it to real simple on emails, but just effective strategies and ways to help parents and some literally go-to things that I typically do on my Instagram, which are just videos. But how can we learn from these videos? We can really learn a lot from when other people don't do the right thing. We can go, okay, we're going to use that as an activity.
Absolutely.
So, yes,
Speechdude.com. Got that. You mentioned another website that I'm going to put down there too. That's for the social stories that I'm going to put underneath there too. Of course, if you guys want to continue the conversation and talk about all of these strategies, come on over to specialedinnercircle.com. That's where we continue the conversation and we make sure that you're getting what you need. And the Special Education Inner Circle is not limited to a certain role on the IEP team. We have too much of people being split on the IEP team. So the Special Education Inner Circle is for every parent, teacher, admin, therapist who wants to be a change maker in special education. That's where it starts. So, Chris, thank you for being here with us today.
Absolutely. I had such a great time. Thank you for having me on as a guest.
Super fun. You're so welcome. I can't wait to chat with you again. And to everyone, we'll talk to you soon.